In 1947, they were testing Mach 2 supersonic pilotless aircraft. And next, we learned about the drones being flown at Roswell Army Airfield. And here's an actual picture. They're controlling this drone up here from a mothership and from a Jeep, which contains radio-controlled controls. Learned about Nero being the father of precision aerial bombing, which is why they were testing drones at Roswell Army Airfield. They were getting ready for nuclear bomb tests at Bikini Atoll. So here's Colonel Nero at Roswell. And we saw a picture which contains Ramey, the famous man seen in the Roswell images from Roswell Army Airfield when they took picture of the debris that W.W. Brazel found. This is him, and him working in a drone test at Roswell Army Airfield. As the drone test continued on, because these atomic bomb drones and aircraft were taking off from Roswell. Welcome to UFO Seekers. I'm Tim Doyle, and today we're taking another deep dive into the famous 1947 Roswell UFO crash. And of course, we've already apologized and warned people for taking this deep dive into this incident because we know that it isn't politically correct to talk about anything except aliens. But today, we're going to connect things from atomic bomb tests to literally the invention of the bikini to Roswell. I know that sounds weird. It sounds really weird, but let's take that deep dive. Say hello to the GAPA missile. This was a Boeing super secret supersonic test that concluded in 1949. Yes, this test was running in 1947. This is a pilotless aircraft, they called it, that went twice the speed of sound. So in 1947, in New Mexico, we had items going twice the speed of sound. And you can look at this up close. You can actually see some people standing right here. Ground-to-air pilotless aircraft. And that information is actually written right in this section. On the wings of flame, the Boeing-built GAPA ground-to-air pilotless aircraft leaves a trail of flame as the guided missile zooms from its launching platform at twice the speed of sound. We're going Mach 2, 1947, New Mexico. From its launching platform at twice the speed of sound. This photograph revealing hitherto unpublished details of the early stage of the supersonic test program, which was concluded in 1949, was taken at Alamogordo, New Mexico, where the first atomic bomb was tested. More than 100 of the slim pencil-like missiles designed to seek out and destroy enemy bombers were tested in an Air Force-sponsored defense program. Boeing now has carried its development of the fantastic new weapon to an advanced and top-secret phase, right? Because they're revealing this top-secret phase. So more than likely, this image was actually taken in 47 or 48. Extremely sensitive and top secret supersonic programs were occurring in New Mexico at the time when W.W. Brazel found the debris which were on the ranch in Corona, New Mexico. So what was going on at Roswell Army Airfield specifically? Besides what I just showed you, which was happening to the west of Roswell, what was actually happening at Roswell Army Airfield? Because we all know it exists, right? That's where the pictures of the debris, the aluminum foil and the sticks, which literally that's what Brazel found. I'm very sorry to say that. There goes my reputation, dropping down like a V2, bursting up in flames. Who is this individual? You're looking at the father of U.S. precision bombing. You can see the date right there, March 1st, 1946, friends. Okay, so let's go ahead and read what this says on the back here. Participant in Operation Crossroads talks to newsmen, Roswell Field, New Mexico. Lieutenant Colonel U.S. Nero, Ulysses S. Nero, who was bombardier for the late General Billy Mitchell, talks to Jimmy Killigan of International News Service on the left, and a reporter in the center. Nero, now at Roswell Field, where preparations are being made for the atomic bomb experiments to be held at Bikini Atoll this summer. He may be among those who will drop the bomb in the test upon the guinea pig fleet units. Here we're looking at a report about Nero and who he is. Ulysses S. Nero, a man described as the father of American precision aerial bombardment, was born in the bustling town of Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, November 13th, 1898. And they gave him the nickname of Sam instead of Ulysses, so some people call him Sam Nero. He completed high school at the age of 15 by working in a shipyard by day and attending class at night. News of World War I filled the newspapers. Longing for excitement, young Sam and friends decided to enlist in the National Guard, where Sam was rejected because of 100 pounds. He lacked the necessary weight. He and his friends visited the Army recruiting station, and on June 13th, 1917, at the age of 19, he enlisted in I Troop of the 13th Cavalry. Nero's early military experiences took him to New Mexico, Kansas, France, and Germany. The Army sent his horse cavalry unit from Fort Riley, Kansas to New Mexico to chase Francisco Ponchavilla back into Mexico. This cavalry action was the last in American history because effective November 1st, 1917, Congress passed legislation that converted the Army's cavalry units to artillery. Nero literally rode in the last horse cavalry and drove Ponchavilla back into Mexico. Among the innovations he developed was a means of communicating between aircraft and ground personnel that combined Morse code and voice. Billy Mitchell is considered the father of the United States Air Force. General Billy Mitchell contended the airplane was superior to the battleship and challenged the Navy to a test. At the Aberdeen Proving Grounds, they were running tests on the effectiveness of aircraft dropping aerial bombs and sinking Navy ships. And they're trying to find out who can sink these ships, if the aerial bombs even work. And so Billy Mitchell is betting everything on Nero being the person who could make this successful for them. Meanwhile, another aircraft tried one more shot at the New Jersey and missed by 300 yards off the port beam. They were flying about 85 miles per hour at an altitude of 6,900 feet when they approached the target about 15 degrees off the port beam. As they approached the target, a wave of self-confidence engulfed Sam. He would later say, "I never had any doubt I could do it." When the time came, he lined up his open wire sight and dropped the bomb right down the smokestack. Sam thought at first it was a dud, but he personally wired both of the safety wires to the aircraft so that when the bombs left the plane, they would arm. Just as he was giving up all hope of success, the explosion came out of the battleship with a big black cloud. The New Jersey turned over and sank in 3 minutes and 17 seconds. So that is the life of Mr. Nero. And Mr. Nero here is at Roswell Army Airfield. And you're looking at two planes flying next to each other. One is a drone and one has pilots in it. And the drone ship is actually being controlled from operations down here. Here's the controls controlling a drone ship. Gee, who is this right here? That's Ramey. That's Ramey, the famous guy seen in the Roswell pictures, right? With the debris next to Marcel. That's Ramey. This is 1955. They're still continuing the drone tests then, because they're going to do more atomic bomb tests, right? It makes a lot of sense because you'd want a drone up there with an atomic bomb, probably not like a crew in an airplane, but that's just kind of me speculating because a lot of what they say, they claim that the drones were only used for camera equipment and camera aircraft. But here we can see Ramey, the famous Ramey with the Roswell parts, participating in drone tests, and this is at Roswell Army Airfield. Again, Roswell Army Airfield right here, Ramey testing drone technology at Roswell Army Airfield. So, and on the front here, we have a little snippet. We're gonna read this real quick. Roswell Field, New Mexico, February 28th. This is 55, so we're jumping ahead a little bit here. We'll come back to the other picture. Preparing for atom bomb tests, officers watch controls of drone. And notice that this actually says drone. Drone B-17, do you see that right there? Drone B-17, okay? So all of these terms were interconnected. And we're going to see on this picture, they talked about radio controlled. So this is a radio controlled aircraft, they're saying. Then here they talk about it as a drone. And then when we looked at our GAPA missile, which GAPA stands for ground-to-air-pilotless aircraft. Officers watch control of drone B-17 bomber during tests here by Joint Army and Navy Aviation Task Forces in preparation for atom bomb tests at Bikini Island in Pacific. Left to right, Rear Admiral Sprague, head of Naval Air Task Force, Brigadier General Roger Ramey, right? Because Ramey, the famous Roswell guy, he's the one who received the Roswell parts in Fort Worth, Texas. And then next to Ramey, we have Major Whitaker, who operated controls that guided pilotless ship. Okay, so at the bottom, it ends with guiding pilotless ship. There we go, pilotless ship. Okay, so now we've seen 4 terms: pilotless ship, pilotless aircraft, radio-controlled aircraft, because here is an actual picture from Roswell Army Airfield, 1946. 1946, friends. This is a year before the famous Roswell crash, right? The actual crash that happened in Corona, not at Roswell. It was like 70 miles northwest of Roswell. So let's read the back here. Radio-controlled plane makes history. Roswell, New Mexico. A radio-controlled 46,000-pound flying fortress took off from the Roswell Army Airfield, circled the base for 30 minutes, and landed without the aid of any human agency aboard. The entire operation was remotely controlled by radio, the landing and takeoff from jeeps on the ground, and the flight itself from a mother plane flying nearby the robot ship. The new device will be used in the forthcoming atom bomb tests against naval vessels. Photo shows the mother plane left and the radio-controlled B-17 on the right. The radio unit used during takeoffs and landings is in the Jeep in the foreground. So, and that's what we can see, right? We can see the Jeep there with the radio-controlled. You can see the wires there because this guy's holding it. See the dude holding the box. And then in this picture, you can see the dude holding the box, right? And I almost think it's the same because if you look at Whitaker's jacket, you can see the black neck area. And then on this picture, you can actually see a black neck area in the same kind of flight jacket, okay? So you can see the wires. And look, there's Ramey. Here's the robot ship. And here's the controlled ship with people inside. So this one doesn't even have people inside. A full-size aircraft, a full-size drone, full-size aircraft. Flying in the 40s, a drone, no one's inside. Radio controlled. Why do people even say that drones are some spectacular innovation now? It's literally, do you realize that now? Is it sinking in that drones are almost 100 years old now? And the media and all these elites and the people who literally hoax you every day by working with Hollywood celebrities can't even admit that drones have been around 100 years. And they don't want you to see this. They do not want you to see this. I'm so glad to have this and preserve it for the future because they would have destroyed something like this and continued on. Now we can see that we're using 5 terms: pilotless aircraft, pilotless ship, robot ship, drone, and radio-controlled aircraft. So there's 5 separate terms that were being used back then to describe what we're seeing and what they were doing. And again, let's read this. The flying fortress took off from Roswell Army Airfield, circled the base for 30 minutes, landed without the aid of any human agency aboard. The landing and takeoff from jeeps on the ground, and the flight itself from a mother plane. What is Operation Crossroads? Well, I have some information. Let's read about it. Operation Crossroads was a pair of nuclear weapon tests conducted by the United States at Bikini Atoll in mid-1946. They were the first nuclear weapon tests since Trinity in July 1945, and the first detonations of nuclear devices since the atomic bombing of Nagasaki, August 9, 1945. The purpose of the test was to investigate the effect of nuclear weapons on warships, right? So we've already heard how Nero was testing aerial bombs against warships in the 20s. Now Nero is participating in aerial bombing with nuclear bombs of ships again. That's why Nero is there in Roswell getting the drones ready to accomplish the bombing. And personally, I think that they had maybe this atomic bomb plane was actually radio controlled because the bomb they dropped, Able, missed the target by something like 700 yards. It'd be better not to put the crew in danger by having a nuclear payload on board with pilots, but actually having a drone which could fly the nuclear material. Think, if something crashed with a nuclear bomb in New Mexico, wouldn't you have a crazy operation to recover it? The first test was Able. The bomb was named Gilda after Rita Hayworth's character in the 1946 film Gilda, because we always have Hollywood connected to the military and government, right? It's the strangest thing. And was dropped from the B-29 Superfortress stage Dream of the 509th Bombardment Group July 1st, 1946. It detonated 520 feet above the target fleet and caused less than expected amount of ship damage because it missed its aim point by 2,130 feet. 649 meters. Bikini's native residents were evacuated from the island, with most moving to Roswell Atoll in the 1950s. A series of large thermonuclear tests rendered Bikini unfit for subsistence farming and fishing because of radioactive contamination. When the scientists pointed out that the tests might demonstrate ship survivability while ignoring the effect of radiation on sailors, they responded by adding test animals to some of the ships, thereby generating protests from animal rights advocates. So again, how we had just talked about the space monkeys and how they were just like blowing monkeys up in rockets. Now again, we're having tests on animals and people are getting upset. There's a picture of the bomb site, Bikini Atoll. You can see the target area marked in yellow there. Radio-controlled autopilots were installed in 8 B-17 bombers. What do you know? Here's General Ramey testing a drone B-17 bomber. The guy who received the Roswell parts, debris, whatever you want to call it. Converting them into remote-controlled drones, which were then loaded with automatic cameras, radiation detectors, and air sample collectors. Their pilots operated them from mother planes at a safe distance from the detonations. The drones could fly into radiation environments, such as Able's mushroom cloud, which would have been lethal to crew members. The main cause of the less than expected ship damage was that the bomb missed its aim point by 710 yards, 649 meters. The ship the bomb was aimed at failed to sink. The miss resulted in a government investigation of the flight crew of the B-29 bomber. Various explanations were offered, including the bomb's known poor ballistic characteristics, but none was convincing. Images of the drop were inconclusive. The bomb site was checked and found to be error-free, right? Because we had just learned about Nero, who was the inventor probably of this bomb site, or helped with this specific bomb site. And we've learned about Nero. Nero dropped the bomb down the smokestack. There's no way it missed. That's what makes me think that this was some type of drone that dropped it and it didn't work correctly. The juxtaposition of half-naked islanders with nuclear weapons that had the power to reduce everything to a primitive state provided some with an inspirational motif. During Operation Crossroads, Paris swimwear designer Louis Réard adopted the name Bikini for his minimalist swimsuit design, which, revolutionary for the time, exposed the wearer's navel. He explained that, like the bomb, the bikini is small and devastating. Fashion writer Diana Vreeland described the bikini as the atom bomb of fashion. While two-piece swimsuits had been used since antiquity, it was Réard's name of the bikini that stuck for all of its modern incarnations. The 167 bikini residents who were moved to Ragnarok Atoll prior to Crossroads tests were unable to gather sufficient food or catch enough fish and shellfish to feed themselves in their new environment. The Navy left food and water for a few weeks and then failed to return in a timely manner. In January 1947, visitors to Ragnarok reported the islanders were suffering malnutrition, facing potential starvation by July, and were emaciated by January 1948. In March 1948, they were evacuated to Kwajalein and then settled onto another uninhabited island, Kili, in November. With only 1/3 of a square mile, Kili has 1/6 the land area of Bikini and, more important, has no lagoon and no protected harbor. Unable to practice their native culture of lagoon fishing, they became dependent on food shipments. Their 4,000 descendants today are living on several islands and in foreign countries. Their desire to return to Bikini was thwarted indefinitely by the U.S. decision to resume nuclear testing at Bikini in 1954. They're testing drones again at Roswell. This is at Roswell. They're testing drones at Roswell. That just west of Roswell. In 1947, they were testing Mach 2 supersonic pilotless aircraft. And in the previous video, we showed where White Sands Missile Range was in the White Sands Proving Grounds and how they would shoot these things northward, which probably could have ended up in Corona. Then next, we learned about the drones being flown at Roswell Army Airfield. And here's an actual picture. They're controlling this drone up here from a mothership and from a Jeep, which contains radio-controlled controls. Then next, we learned about Nero. Nero being the father of precision aerial bombing, which is why they were testing drones at Roswell Army Airfield. They were getting ready for nuclear bomb tests at Bikini Atoll. So here's Colonel Nero at Roswell talking about Operation Crossroads coming up. And then we saw a picture which contains Ramey, the famous man seen in the Roswell images from Roswell Army Airfield when they took picture of the debris that W.W. Brazel found. This is him, and him working in a drone test at Roswell Army Airfield. As the drone test continued on, because these atomic bomb drones and aircraft were taking off from Roswell. So I hope you learned something today that you didn't know about Roswell, and we're going to continue our deep dive. Maybe one more. I think I'm feeling one more kind of about this issue. So keep your eye out, and thank you for tuning in. I hope you have a great day.